Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare.
Can we get started?
Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare.
सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। श्री गीता ध्यानम्। ॐ पार्थाय प्रतिबोधितां भगवता नारायणेन स्वयं व्यासेन ग्रथितां पुराणमुनिना मध्ये महाभारतम् अद्वैतामृतवर्षिणी भगवती अष्टादशाध्यायिनी अम्ब त्वामनुसन्दधामि भगवद्गीते भवद्वेषिणी। नमोऽस्तु ते व्यासविशालबुद्धे पुल्लारविन्दायतपत्रनेत्रा येन त्वया भारततैलपूर्णः प्रज्वालितो ज्ञानमयप्रदीपः प्रपन्नपारिजाताय स्तोत्रवैत्रेकपाणये ज्ञानमुद्राय कृष्णाय गीतामृतदुहे नमः। सर्वोपनिषदो गावो दोग्धा गोपालनन्दनः पार्थो वत्सः सुधीर्भोक्ता दुग्धं गीतामृतं महत्। वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुं। भीष्मद्रोणतटा जयद्रथचला गान्धारनीलोत्पला शल्यग्राहवती कृपेण वहनी कर्णेन वेलाकुला अश्वत्थामविकर्णघोरमकरा दुर्योधनावर्तिनी सोत्तीर्णा खलु पाण्डवैरननदी कैवर्तककेशवः पाराशर्यवचः सरोजममलं गीतार्थगन्धोत्कटं नानाख्यानककेसरं हरिकथा सम्बोधनाबोधितम्। लोके सज्जनषट्परैरहरहः पेपीयमानं मुदा भूयात् भारतपङ्कजं कल्मलप्रध्वंसिनः श्रेयसे। मूकं करोति वाचालं पङ्गुं लङ्घयति गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे परमानन्दमाधवं। यं ब्रह्मा वरुणीन्द्ररुद्रमरुतः स्तुवन्ति दिव्यैस्तवैः वेदैः साङ्गपदक्रमोपनिषदे गायन्ति यं सामगाः। ध्यानावस्थिततद्गतेन मनसा पश्यन्ति यं योगिनो यस्यान्तं न विदुःसुरासुरगणा देवाय तस्मै नमः। देवाय तस्मै नमः। देवाय तस्मै नमः।
We are reading Vibhuti Yoga. So last minute, basically we had to all run up here to the hill because there was no signal. It was there till about 3:50 or so, there was signal. At 3:50, the signal went. So we all had to come up. So it's like Bhagwan saying that my Vibhuti is there in the forest, please go. So, so that's the message for today. I'm here in the forest also. All these weeks, tomorrow I'm going back to Bangalore. And all these weeks I was in Anjanagiri. Every weekend I was doing the satsang from home. Tomorrow I'm leaving, tomorrow morning. So Bhagwan is saying, you didn't see my Vibhuti, which is there in the forest. So please go. So we will see all about that today. So Bhagwan says that those who are steadfast, Dhrida Nishchay, steadfast, worshipping me with love and devotion. To them, I give them the yoga of discrimination, the Buddhi Yoga. And by which they come to me. By that Buddhi Yoga, they come to me. And for them alone for the Matchitta, Madgata Pranaha, for those people, for them alone, through Buddhi Yoga, I destroy the darkness that is born out of ignorance by the luminous lamp of knowledge. And then Arjuna says, oh Bhagwan, you are the supreme, the master of all. And you are the master of all yoga. And I am but an ordinary human being. I'm nobody. I'm just a very ordinary human being. Can you please tell me, how do I meditate upon you? And meditating upon you in this manner, the way you teach me, how do I get to know you? So Arjuna is actually asking this question on behalf of all of us. It is quite clear by lot of indications that by now Arjuna is pretty knowledgeable in terms of what Bhagwan has taught him up till now. So he's also asking this question for the benefit of others. And thanks to that, we are able to learn today. So Bhagwan, you are the supreme reality. And you are the supreme reality through your extraordinary power of yoga. And only you know the true extent of yourself, your Vibhuti. So only you can tell me. And not only that, Bhagwan, I don't feel satisfied by this nectarine lecture of yours. This lecture that you have given me filled with nectar that has infused life into me completely, to the extent that now I am much more energetic compared to what I was when you started. But this talk is not satiating. It is not, Amrit. So the more I have, I feel like I should have more. So please tell me more. Keshu keshu cha bhaveshu. Where all, in what and what aspects, O Bhagwan, where all should you be thought of by me? Chintyosi Bhagavan Maya. Like Bhagwan says in the forest here, come go to the forest. Today your satsang is going to be in the forest. Where and where? Where all? Vibhuti is his glorious manifold manifestations. Now everything is Lord. Everything, every single element, every speck of creation is Bhagwan. There's no doubt about this. But the aspects of creation that capture us when we look at them, and they enrapture, they enthrall, those aspects that make our hearts, our core, feel gladdened, feel that sense of satisfaction that Arjuna is feeling, that makes you feel I'm not satisfied, I want more. To that level, that mumukshutva nature. That those aspects stand out. In anything and everything, those aspects stand out, And Bhagwan says, and he encourages, that I am pointing out those aspects to you. See me in those aspects. And he does this in a beautifully scientific manner again. He starts from our very core, and then he takes us to the mega aspects of the universe, and then goes into the very elements of creation. We will see that in today's satsang. Let's start with verse 20.
Ahamatma Gudakesha.
Ahamatma Gudakesha.
Sarvabhutashayastitaha.
Sarvabhutashayastitah.
Ahamadishcha madhyam cha.
Ahamadishcha madhyam cha.
Bhutanamanta eva cha.
Bhutanamanta eva cha.
Ahamatma Gudakesha. Sarvabhutashayastitaha. Ahamadishcha madhyam cha. Bhutanamanta eva cha.
Sorry for some of these small disruptions. Still settling down. My mother is coming now. So I admire her grit. She's coming all the way. She's climbed up and she's coming. Yeah, so let her join. We'll continue. Aham Atma Gudakesha. Aham, I am. Atma, the self. Gudakesha. Gudakesha is addressing Arjuna now. O conqueror of tamas. Sarva Bhuta Shayastitaha. Seated in the hearts of all beings. And then he says, Aham, I, Adi, Adishcha, Adi, the beginning, Cha, and, Madhyam, the middle, and, Bhutanam Anta Evacha, even the Anta, the end of all beings, Bhutanam. I am the self, O Gudakesha, seated in the hearts of all beings. I am the beginning, I am the middle, and the end of all beings. Aham Atma Sarva Bhuta Shaya Stitaha. Aham Atma Sarva Bhuta Shaya Stitaha. Ishvara is the supreme being that is residing in the self, meaning he is seated in the very core of all beings. When we refer to the heart, we refer, like I have said earlier, not to the pumping circulatory organ, but to the very core of our beings, of all creation. And there, Bhagavan is seated as a pure witness, the pure consciousness illuminating all thoughts. And Bhagavan says, see me within you. And then he says, Adi Madhyam cha Anta Bhutanam Aham. Adi, I am the beginning. That is, all beings come from me. I am the Shrishti Karana, the cause for creation. If all beings come from me, that means I am the cause for all creation. I am the middle, that is, all beings exist in me. I am the Sthiti Karana, Sthiti. Sthiti Karana, the cause for existence, the cause for sustenance. And I am also the end. That is, all beings dissolve into me. I am the Layasthana, cause for dissolution. And he addresses Arjuna as Gudakesa, one who has conquered sleep, one who has conquered tamas, one who has conquered the impurities of the mind. Gudaka is tamas, Gudaka is sleep, and Kesha is someone, the conqueror, someone who has conquered. Now Arjuna has come to the stage after conquering his tamas. All the tamasic tendencies that he had, which prevented him from performing his duty, that made him sit down in his chariot, abandoning all his weapons, trembling, sweating in that state. From that tamasic state, Arjuna has reached here now. And that is why Bhagavan addresses him as Gudakesha. Not only that, Arjuna's mind has got purified. Listening to Sri Krishna for so long, we all have listened, no? So we know. So his mind has got purified. And with this pure mind, Bhagavan says, you will find me within you, Gudakesha. Look within. You will find me in your core. And you will also find, Bhagavan says, he continues, me elsewhere, wherever, whenever you look out. We continue with verse 21.
Adityanamaham Vishnuhu
Adityanamaham Vishnuhu
Jyotisham Raviram Shumam
Jyotisham Raviram Shuman
Marichid Marutam Asmi
Marichir Marutam Asmi
Nakshatranamaham Shashi
Nakshatranamaham Sashi
Adityanamaham Vishnuhu Jyotisham Raviram Shumam Marichid Marutam Asmi Nakshatranamaham Shashi.
Adityanam Aham Vishnu. Among the Adityas, I am Vishnu. The 12 sons born to sage Kashyapa and his wife Aditi are known as Adityas. So they are the 12 Adityas. Besides these, Aditi had 21 children along with sage Kashyapa, including Indra. All of them are known as Adityas, meaning the children of Aditi. Aditya means the children of Aditi. Bhagavan here is referring to the 12 Adityas. And from these 33 sons of Aditi were born the 33 crore devatas that is there, that we worship in Sanatana Dharma. From these 33 sons. The 12th is Vishnu. And he is in the form of Vamana here. When Bhagavan is referring to Aditya Namaham Vishnu, he is referring to the Vamana, that form of Bhagavan Vishnu. Jyotisham Ravi Ramshuman. Among the effulgent lights, among all the Jyoti, I am Ravi. I am the radiant sun. Ravi is the radiant sun. Don't we all see and admire the sun? The sunrise, the sunset. You know, we all see that. And of course, sun is sustaining all of our livelihood, all of our life itself. The next time we see the sun, we should think Bhagavan is there in the sun. And then he says, Marichir Marutam Asmi. I am Marichi among the Maruts. The Maruts or the Marutgana are a set of Devatas. They are 7 groups of 7 Devatas, which means 49 Maruts, 49 in number. They preside over the Vayu Tattva, the truth of the wind god, the deity, the wind deity. So it essentially means that they are a group of storm gods. Almost all of them are storms. Almost all of them. They are attendants to Indra. And like I said, most of them are violent in nature. And there is a very interesting story that shows us how they became attendants to Indra in our Puranas about the Maruts. So what happened, other than Aditi, sage Kashyap, other than Aditi, has another wife, Diti. And Diti's children, or Diti is the mother of the Daityas. And Diti is upset that every single time the Daityas and the Devatas, they keep fighting with each other. And Diti is upset that every single time Aditi's children win over her children. And she complains once to sage Kashyapa. And sage Kashyapa calmly, quietly tells her, don't worry about it, Diti. Vishnu is on the side of the Aditi's children and they will always win. So let it go, don't worry about it. But Diti is determined. She says, no way, I cannot take anything of this. And then she performs tapas. She performs penance. And at the end of the penance, you know, she forces sage Kashyap to ask her, tell me what you want. So much of tapas that you are doing. And Diti says that I have to have a child who will defeat Indra and all his devas. So sage Kashyap says he is helpless now. He has to grant her her boon because she's done. She deserves it through her tapas. So he says, okay, but there is one condition. Throughout the time that you are bearing the child, you have to follow certain rules and regulations. That is extremely critical. For example, you will not hurt anyone else. Any other element of creation, you will not hurt. You will not tell a lie. You will not abuse anybody. You will not think ill of anyone else. Typically, the Daityas are people who are more aggressive. So they will think of harming. You will not do any of those. All negative tendencies during this entire period of time, you will abstain from. If you do that, the son that is born to you will defeat Indra, and he will make sure that all your sons will emerge victorious. Diti agrees, and the time period starts. She bears this child and carries the child. When Aditi hears about this, she goes to Indra and tells him that this is what is happening, Indra. You beware, and looks like your victorious days are going to come to an end. And there is only one way to protect yourself and your devatas, which is to make Diti, not follow one of the conditions. If Diti breaks any of the rules, then you will be protected. And Aditi advises her son that why don't you go to Diti's house as a servant, disguised as a servant, and serve her. And in your own way, make her commit a mistake through which she will not be following one of the conditions. And once that happens, you will be able to, you will get the power to actually get into her womb and kill that child that is going to be your destroyer otherwise. So Indra does as he's been told. And sure enough, after some time, Diti, is in a position where she breaks one of the conditions. And Indra gets into her womb and cuts the womb into 7 pieces. And the baby is actually crying out. So Indra cuts it into further, each of the pieces into 7 pieces. So the one becomes 7, then the 7 becomes 49. And that's how the 49 Maruts are born. And Diti actually gives birth to the 49 sons instead of that one son. And because she didn't follow the condition, and because Indra was able to subdue the womb at the stage before the child was born, the 49 sons of Diti became the followers, became the attendants, assistants of Indra. And their particular job, because of their aggressive nature, was to be the storm gods. This is the story behind the Maruts. And among the Maruts, Marichi is this cool, soft breeze that we all feel and enjoy. When it is stormy, we all take shelter. But when there is this beautiful, smooth, pleasant, cool, soft, caressing breeze, we all like it. Marichi is that among the Maruts. And Bhagavan Sri Krishna says that among all the Maruts, I am Marichi. Of course, he is all the other Maruts also by them. But he wants us to look at the splendor. He wants us to look at what catches our attention. We all run away when there is a storm. But when there is a caressing breeze, we sit and enjoy that breeze. Bhagavan says, that is who I am. Nakshatranam aham sashi. Nakshatras are nighttime luminaries. Nakshatras are not necessarily stars. Stars are also nakshatras. But nakshatras are all nighttime luminaries, the constellations. And Bhagavan says that amongst all the nighttime luminaries, I am Sashi. Sashi is the moon. So don't we all, especially the lovers of the night sky, don't we all look at the moon, and even otherwise, everybody look at the moon and the pleasing sight of the moon, the cooling sight of the moon, that cool light. It is so nice to us. We all love the full moon. And as soon as it is Amavasya, we wish that the moon comes back again. And then even as the moon goes through its cycle, the beauty of it we admire. There's not one child that does not ask the mother that, please, can I get the moon? Can you bring the moon to me here? There's not one lover who says, go bring the moon to me. So everyone, the number of Bollywood songs that have been, love songs that have been made on the Chand is countless. There's so many of them. So moon is extremely attractive to all of us. Bhagavan says, among all the nighttime luminaries, I am the moon. And then he continues.
Vedanam Samavedosmi.
Vedanam Samavedosmi.
Devanam Asmi Vasavaha.
Devanam-asmi Vasavaha.
इन्द्रियाणां मनश्चास्मि
Indriyanam Manaschasmi.
भूतानामस्मि चेतना
Bhutanam-asmi Chetana.
वेदानां सामवेदोऽस्मि देवानामस्मि वासवः इन्द्रियाणां मनश्चास्मि भूतानामस्मि चेतना
Vedanam Samavedosmi. Among the Vedas, I am Samaveda. Actually, the Veda as a body of revealed knowledge. Veda is revealed knowledge. And Veda as a body of revealed knowledge is only one. Sage Veda Vyasa split it into 4 and gave one each to his followers, to his students, to his Shishyas, so that they do not get lost. In order to preserve the Vedas, he split them into 4. And then they further got split into number of other texts as we know them. Samaveda is Gana Madhurya, like Madhuri, no? Madhurya. Gana Madhurya. Gana Madhurya means sweet song. Samaveda is a sweet song. It excels over the others by the sweetness of its melody. The Samaveda also focuses on the Bhagavan's Vibhutis. That is one of the main focus areas of Samaveda. And it is also known to be the Veda of devotion. So 3 prime qualities: pleasing to the ears through its melodious tunes, focusing on the Vibhutis, which Bhagavan says, you focus on the Vibhutis, you will be able to see divinity everywhere. And it is the Veda of devotion, how Bhagavan, puts devotion on top of everything, bhakti. Right? So, because of these 3 reasons, Bhagavan says, among the Vedas, I am Samaveda. Devanam asmi Vasavaha. Among the gods, I am Vasava. Vasava is another name for Indra. Indra is the lord of all opulence, or all splendor. Everything good, everything nice is represented by Indra. He has everything as the king of gods. Vasava means wealthy. And he also possesses all the Ratnas, including the Jnana Ratna. Again, there is a very beautiful story that talks about how Indra came to possess the Jnana Ratna. The first time the Devatas defeated the Asuras in battle, the very first time, they were all celebrating their victory. They will feel damn good about it. Fully dwelling in the I beat him, I defeated him, we defeated him, all of us together defeated them. That I, we and us was completely dominating over the Devatas. They were all deep into this ego. Suddenly, a Yaksha is a radiant being. Yaksha is a radiant being, so radiant that you are tempted to worship. You are actually helpless to worship, worshipful being. Suddenly a Yaksha appeared and looking at them with a smirk. A smirk is like a condescending kind of, and standing there looking. Suddenly the Devatas noticed that who's this, looking at us with such contempt. And we are victorious. We have won. We have beat the Asuras. And look at that contempt. How dare? So Agni is given the task of going to find out who is this person. Go take a look and tell. Indra sends Agni. Agni goes there. And Agni says, as Agni is beginning to talk, the Yaksha says, who are you? And Agni is stunned. You don't know who I am? I am Agni. You don't know who I am? Who are you? Now, it is well known that the Devatas know everything. Everything that is born. Everything that has bhava. Everything that has taken birth. But from there, when Agni asks, who are you? It implies that this Yaksha has not taken birth. Obviously, there's only one who has not taken birth, Bhagavan. Everything else has taken birth. There's only one. So Agni has not even realized. They are so much into themselves. Agni is so much into his own aspect of victoriousness, victory, that doesn't recognize Yaksha as Bhagavan. Who are you? the Yaksha ignores and says, what do you do? Oh, you're Agni, I don't know, but what do you do? You don't know me, you don't know what I do. I can set fire to anything and everything. Oh, is that so? Says the Yaksha. Then can you please light fire to the piece of straw, and hands over a small piece of straw. And Agni tries to rage into that straw, not able to set fire to the straw, fails to set fire. And then is coming back dejected, doesn't know who this person is. And this person, doesn't know me and gives me something, and I'm not able to do something which I just naturally do. Can't even set fire because that's my nature. I set fire, but can't do. And just quietly comes back. Then Vayu is sent. Indra says, Vayu, you go. Vayu goes. Same way. Who are you? Asks the Yaksha. You don't know me. Come on. I'm Vayu. Oh, okay, you're Vayu. What do you do? I blow strongly. I pervade all of space. You should know this much. You should know me. Oh, you blow, is it? Can you please blow this straw? The same straw gives back, which Agni could not set on fire. Vayu tries with all the force of all Indra's attendants, all the storms, not able to blow away the straw. And then Vayu also dejectedly goes back. And then Indra himself says, let me go and find out. And when Indra goes, this Yaksha who at least gave audience to Agni and Vayu just disappears. Doesn't even bother to attend or even give any regard to Indra. Just quietly vanishes. So Indra doesn't even have the opportunity to ask or find out. And then in that place where the Yaksha was, the story goes that Uma, Parvati, comes. And then Parvati tells Indra that who you saw, the Yaksha, is Brahman. And all this victory that you guys are all jumping around, thinking that you have achieved, that is achieved because of the glory of Brahman. You have not achieved it. He who has achieved, and you have got it because of his glory. And that is how Indra became the first element of creation ever, first among Devatas and all other aspects, who got to know that this is Brahman, about the Brahman. And that is how he is known as the first one to have received this Jnana Ratna. And hence is the foremost amongst all of Devatas. What a beautiful story. Indriyanam manas chasmi. With respect to the senses, I am the mind. So the purpose of the Indriyas is twofold: to gather information. So the Jnanendriyas are the Indriyas which gather information. The eyes, the ears, the nose, the tongue, and the skin gather information. And then their duty or their purpose is also to perform action. The Karmendriyas, the hands, the legs, the vocal cords, the reproductive system, and the excretory system. So this is the Indriyas. And Bhagavan says, among all of them, I am the mind. The mind is actually, in strictest definition, is not Indriya. But what? Why does Bhagavan say that I am the mind? It is the mind that issues commands for reception or for action. The Indriyas by themselves, each one of them can do only one thing. You can either only see or you can grasp. You can either, only hear or you can kick. The Indriyas can do only one function: assimilating all of them into useful knowledge, assimilating all of them into logical, productive, useful, productive knowledge, and then issuing out that in terms of meaningful action is determined by the mind. So the mind assimilates every single piece of information to ensure that there is knowledge, and then uses that knowledge and to ensure that there is coordinated action. And Bhagavan says, I am the mind. Bhutanam asmi chetana. With respect to beings, I am intelligence. Chetana is the ability to be aware, sentiency, to be conscious of. The manifestation of consciousness in the mind leads to life, to jiva. Without that, the body, mind, intellect paradigm is nothing but an inert substance which is lying out there, like a log of wood. When consciousness is infused into it, then the life manifests. It's like the example that I gave. The electricity, the bulb itself, a light bulb, has the glass dome, it has an element, and it has gas in between. But you keep it on a table, it does nothing. It's an inert object. The minute electricity is infused into it, it glows. Similarly, the minute consciousness is infused into body, mind, intellect, life manifests. The difference between living and the dead is the presence or absence of consciousness. Consciousness present, life is there. Consciousness absent, death, dead. The more evolved a being, the clearer the consciousness. The ability to know, the ability to respond, being able to know and respond, that Bhagavan says is me. And he further continues in verse 23.
Rudranam Shankarashchasmi
Rudranam Shankarashchasmi
Vittesho Yaksharakshasam
Vittesho Yaksharakshasam
Vasunam Pavakaschasmi
Vasunam Pavakaschasmi
Merushikarinamaham
Merushikarinamaham
Rudranam Shankarashchasmi Vittesho Yaksharakshasam Vasunam Pavakaschasmi Merushikarinamaham.
Rudranam Shankaraschasmi. Among the Rudras, I am Shankara. Rudras are forms of the god Rudra Shiva or Shankara. They are fearsome deities. They are among the 33 Devatas, the sons of Aditi. There are 11 Rudras and Shankara is among them the Shambhu, the Bholenath among them, the one who creates auspiciousness. And Bhagavan says, among the fearsome Rudras, I am the one who creates auspiciousness. I am Shankar. Vittesho Yaksha Rakshasam. Among the Yakshas and the Rakshasa, okay, the people who protect, I am Kubera. Here, there is two meaning, okay, I'll come to that. Vitta is wealth. Vittesha is Lord of wealth. Now, Kubera is also the step cousin of Ravana, Rakshasa, Ravana. So, when we recite the words, we say Vittesho Yaksha Rakshasam. And there is also Rakshasa, who is the step cousin of his stepmother Kaikasi, is the mother of Ravana. Thus, Kubera is a step cousin of Ravana. He did a lot of tapas and as a boon sought all the wealth that he has. Lord Brahma granted him the boon of wealth. Kubera is the Lord of wealth. But as he was giving all the wealth to Kubera, Lord Brahma also asked something in return. He said, in return, I want you to be a Lokapala. Lokapala is one of the 4 that guard the world, that protect. That's how Rakshasam comes. And Kubera agreed. So essentially, it is known that Kubera protects the north or guards the north. Yama guards the south, Yama Bhagwan. Varuna guards the west and Indra guards the east. And then Bhagwan says, Vasunam Pavakaschasmi. Among the Vasus, I am Pavaka. Vasunam Pavakaschasmi. There are 8 Vasus. And they are all attendant deities of Indra. The immediate attendants, like we saw earlier also. They represent aspects of nature that are part of the cosmic, natural cosmic phenomena or the cosmic nature. That's what they represent. And one of the Ashtavasus is Anala or Pavaka, which is Agni or fire. And Agni assumes various degrees of warmth and sustains life also. And among the Vasus, I am Agni, I am Pavaka. Meru Shikarinam Aham. Among the mountains, I am Meru. The golden Mount Meru is believed to be the axis around which all heavenly bodies rotate. All of the heavenly bodies rotate around the golden Mount Meru. It is also symbolical representation of the Brahmadanda, which is the spinal cord in the human structure. The science of yoga calls it Sushumna. The Sushumna, or the golden lustre form from which all forms of sensations arise. So Bhagavan says, Meru Shikarinam Asmi. Among the mountains, I am Meru. And then he continues.
Purodasam cha mukhyam mam
Purodasam cha mukhyam mam
Vidhi partha brihaspatim
Vidhi partha brihaspatim
Senaninamaham skandaha
Senaninam aham skandaha
Sarasamasmi sagaraha
Rasamasmi sagaraha
Purodhasam cha mukhyam mam Vidhi partha brihaspatim Senaninamaham skandaha Sarasamasmi sagaraha.
Purodhasam cha mukhyam mam Vidhi partha brihaspatim. Among the priests, O Partha, know me to be the chief, Brihaspati, the Brihaspati. Brihaspati is the chief of all priests. Vidhi, no. Purodhasam, among the household priests, or among all the priests, all of the priests, I am Mukhyam Brihaspati, Mukhyam Brihaspati, the chief who is Brihaspati. The priest, what does the priest do? The priest administers ritualistic worship. And in addition to that, priests also give a sanctified code of conduct for people. Even kings, emperors always used to listen to their head priest. The sanctified code of conduct is issued by the priest for people. Brihaspati discharges a sacred duty. Brihaspati discharges this sacred duty among the Devas, in the kingdom of the Devas. Brihaspati also plays a very vital role in Vamana Avatar. He taught the 14 fields of knowledge to Bhagavan Vamana. And then Bhagavan says, Sena Ninam Aham Skandaha. Among generals, I am Skanda. Sena Ninam, among the generals of the army, I am Skanda. Skanda is Deva Senapati, the general of the Devas, the chief of the Devas army. He is also a great guru and taught the precept of Vedas to Shiva, who is his father. The guru of the gurus. He taught the precept of the Vedas. And that is how he came to be known as Subramanya. Subramanya means the best among Brahmins, which means the best among those who have realized the Brahman. Those who have realized the Brahman is Brahman. Anyone who has realized Brahman is Brahman. And among those, he is the best. He is the prime, Skanda. He is also known as Kartikeya, Muruga in the south. He is the younger son of Shiva. There's this beautiful story about Arunagiri Nadar. Arunagiri Nadar was a person who started thinking about what is this life, what is going on, what is happening. And that thought went on and on and on to an extent where he said, this life is useless, worthless, I'm going to end it. And he climbed up on top of the temple and he jumped down. I'm forgetting the name of the temple in South India. And he jumped down, only to find that he was held by the strong arms of Subramanya. He was thus saved. And then Subramanya, and he asked Subramanya, he said, you saved me, but what is this life? What's going on in this life? And Subramanya said, Summa Iru, the teaching of Summa Iru. Summa means be still. Be still. You will find out the meaning of life. Summa, you will find out. And through this, Arunagirinathar became one of the most respected saints in South India. And the Summa worked so well for him that later on, much later, I think about 3 centuries, Ramana Maharishi, he also had these similar thoughts. What is this meaning of life? What is this? And it got so deep. But Ramana Maharishi was lucky that Arunagirinathar had already got this knowledge of Summa. So he was able to practice this stillness. He didn't think of giving up life because this knowledge of Summa had already been bestowed by Lord Subramanya. And Ramana Maharishi, we all know very well that he was a master of this stillness, where he could have out-of-body experiences while sitting in front of his devotees. And then Bhagavan says, Sarasam Asmi Sagaraha. Among all water bodies, Saras. Among all of them, I am the ocean, I am Sagara. The ocean suggests the infinitude of Bhagavan. Whenever we see the ocean, it extends to the horizon. That infinitude. So it is suggestive of the infinitude of Bhagavan. Merging the mind into its expanse that we see is a worship of the Almighty. Sitting in the beach front, in front of the beach, in front of the ocean, looking at the ocean, it's very easy to lapse into meditation. It's very easy to start feeling spiritual. That expanse, that power of Bhagavan that we see, that is the ocean. And Bhagavan continues.
Maharshinam Bhriguraham.
Maharshinam Bhriguraham.
Giramasmi Kamaksharam.
Giramaskamaksharam.
Yajnanam Japayajnosmi.
Yajnanam Japayajnosmi.
Stavaranam Himalayaha.
Stavaranam Himalayaha.
Maharshinam Bhriguraham. Giramasmi Kamaksharam. Yajnanam Japayajnosmi. Stavaranam Himalayaha.
Maharshinam Bhriguraham. Among all the Maharishis, I am Bhrigu. So many great sages, they gathered on the bank of river Saraswati. That was the time when Saraswati was flowing above the earth to participate in a Mahayagya or Yaga. All the great sages could not decide, because all sages, right? All great sages, all the Maharishis. So who do you dedicate the Yaga to? To the gods. And the Maharishis say, we will dedicate to the Trinity of God. Now, in the Trinity of Gods, who? They could not decide who among the Trinity, Vishnu, Shiva, Brahma. Vishnu, Brahma, Shiva, or Brahma, Shiva, Vishnu, or Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva. Among that Trinity, who is preeminent? Who deserves for us to dedicate this Yaga to them? And it was decided that Bhrigu would test the 3 gods, the Trinity, and discover among them who is most deserving. Bhrigu was selected because he is considered as Ati Tejasvi, supremely brilliant. That is the quality of the brilliance that shines forth. The Tejas is just reflects out of it, just pours out of it. That is why he was selected to test and discover who is the greatest, and hence the most deserving of the 3 gods, the Trinity. Bhrigu first went to his father, Lord Brahma. And Brahma was reciting the Vedas along with his consort Saraswati, and didn't even realize that Bhrigu had come, ignored him. Bhrigu got angry. Bhrigu is actually known for his anger also. That brilliance and anger go together. So Bhrigu was known for his anger. He got angry and he cursed Brahma that you will never be worshipped. And then Brahma also, it is said that got angry, so Bhrigu ran away from there. He went to Shiva. Shiva, he saw, was spending time with Parvati. And again, didn't even realize that Bhrigu was there, ignored him completely. Bhrigu got angrier and he cursed Shiva that you will be worshipped as Lingam. And then from there he went to Vishnu, Vaikunta. When he went there, he saw Vishnu is sleeping on his Adishesha, nicely in a doze. This infuriated Bhrigu. Brahma didn't realize, doing something else, didn't even pay attention that he had come. Shiva didn't even pay attention yet. And look, Vishnu is deep asleep. So he was so enraged by now that he went to Vishnu and kicked him on his chest. And Vishnu immediately woke up and said, "Oh my God, have you hurt your foot? Because you kicked me, you must have hurt your foot." And he started massaging Bhrigu's foot. And while massaging Bhrigu's foot, it is said that Bhrigu had his quote-unquote third eye on his foot. He destroyed the third eye. They destroyed the third eye, meaning destroyed the ego, destroyed the anger. Bhrigu realized how he was prone to egotistical outburst. All this outburst that he used to come. Shiva didn't notice, it hurt his ego and he started yelling. So he realized that he had this weakness and Vishnu helped him get rid of this weakness. And because of this, Bhrigu said that Vishnu is the most deserving among the three. And he is among the Trinity, he will be the one who has the preeminence of being the supreme for the yaga. But this conduct of impudence and this conduct of Bhrigu that angered Lakshmi, Mahalakshmi. And Mahalakshmi cursed Bhrigu and all humanity, that all of humans, all humanity will attain wealth only through extreme hard work. Without hard work, you will not attain it. That we all know. If you have to attain any kind of wealth, you have to work hard. By the way, even the people who attain wealth through not good means, they also work hard. Work hard condition, you have to fulfill. Okay. It's only the devas who get everything, nothing, just like that, free of cost. They don't have to do anything for all the opulence that they get. So this is that interesting story, how, and Vishnu, quote unquote, almost reciprocates where he says, among all the Maharishis, I am Bhrigu, the Tejasvi. Girinam asmi ekam aksharam. Among words, I am the single syllable. The single syllable indicates Om. We all start all our satsang, the puja, yoga sessions, everything we start with Om, end with Om. Right? The Omkara or the Om is indicative of supreme reality. Om is primordial sound from which all sounds of creation emerge. The utterance of Om consists of three parts. A, which is the beginning. U, which is very good. That is the young boy Ashish saying before me. U, which is the middle. And N, which is the end. Remember, Bhagavan said, I am the beginning, I am the middle, and I am the end of all. It is representative of that. The beginning, the middle, and the end. Om. Om signifies all of everything. Words, objects, beings, everything. Whatever, all of all. Let's call it that. All of all. It essentially conveys the concepts of omnipresence, omnipotence, and omniscience. All pervading, all powerful, all knowing. According to the Big Bang theory, Om is the cosmic sound that initiated the creation of the universe. In fact, there's not much time here today, but if you Google, there is a lot of interesting aspects about the sound of Om. One of the very interesting things that I came across is, see, we cannot see inside the sun. Obviously, we cannot even go near the sun. So you can't have a microscope to study the sun. While you can send a rover to Mars, you cannot send a rover to the sun. So one of the ways that the scientists use to study the sun is sound. So there is this sound that is constantly reverberating. And if you actually hear, and there is, NASA has a site, you just Google NASA sun sound, you will find it. It is like Om. That sound is like Om. Sanatana Dharma says, while science says that creation, that Om sound create was part of a crucial element in creation. Sanatana Dharma says that Om is the constantly reverberating sound of the universe. Even if it stops for a millisecond, all of the universe will cease to exist. That is the power of Om. Om also is measured. There are matras, like I said, A, U, M. These are matras. So it is measured. And this A, U, M exists in the foundation of silence. So there is measurement and there is no measurement also, immeasurable. Silence is immeasurable. So measured matras and immeasurable silence. Thus, Om represents the manifested as well as the unmanifested Brahman. Both the Paraprakriti and the Aparaprakriti. Yajnanam Japa Yagyosmi. Among all yagyas, I am Japa Yagya. Yagya or sacrifice is worship. We have seen, forms of worship and all of that, right? The act of the Jiva, the Jivatman, surrendering to the Paramatman. That is Yagya, that is worship. And Japa Yagya is constant mental repetition of Paramatma's name. It is the easiest and most glorious forms of all worship. Why is it the easiest? It does not require any accessings. For us to say Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, nothing is required. You just have to say. Only we are required. Even if we don't have vocal cord, we can say it mentally inside. It is absolutely independent of anything else. There is no dependence. There is no strain involved. You can just exist. As much as we are breathing, we can do japa. Anyone and everyone can practice it. There are no rules and regulations, preparations, nothing. Lot of worships, yagas. There are, see, for example, Bhrigu had to go to heavens to find out who will be the one to whom I devote this yaga. Japa doesn't require anything. You sit down and start saying Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva, whatever. That Lord will be with you. That Bhagavan will be with you. No preparation is required. Can be done anytime. Anytime, anywhere, any place. Doesn't matter. It's not even like meditation, where remember Bhagavan said, first clean the place, then put a platform. Japa doesn't even require that. Nothing is required. Anytime, any place. There is no himsa involved. Lot of sacrifices, there is himsa, animal sacrifice. Even when we give flower to Bhagavan, we pluck the flower out of a plant and give it. We sacrifice that flower. Tulsi also, we pluck it out and give. Live Tulsi, by the way. We do that, right? But in this, there is absolutely full ahimsa in japa. There's nothing. Just sit down and take the name of Bhagavan. And finally, we make God listen to us. When I say Sarika, Sarika will immediately look at me. Right? And not only that, if I keep calling her and saying again, and she'll be all the time, Srini is going to call, Srini is going to, Upasana, sometimes it happens, Srini is going to call. So Bhagavan will be like, Srini is going to take my name. So not only is he responding when we take the name, but he also remembers Bhagavan. We make Bhagavan remember us when we take his name. So among all the yagyas, I am Japa Yagya. Stavaranam Himalaya. Among the immovables, I am Himalaya. Jangama means moving, things which are mobile. Sthavara means that which are stationary, those which are immovable. The firm, the sthita. And among those, I am the majestic, mighty Himalayas. Like I said about the ocean, the Himalayas is another place. In that presence of those majestic peaks, those mountains, they soar above you. Whatever height you go, there is one more peak that is soaring above you. Unless, of course, you are on top of Mount Everest, right? But even in front of Mount Everest, you see all the other peaks that are majestic and mighty. So automatically, that element of meditation comes when you are there. Automatically, that sense of sereneness descends upon you. Actually, to me personally, it's even much more than the ocean. When you go deep into the Himalayas. to experience God, actually feel that presence. How many sages, have gone to the Himalayas and been able to successfully take their mind and intellect away from the material world, from samsara? How many? There are countless sages, innumerable sages that have done that. And then take their mind away and then what? Experience that tranquil bliss. Experience that Jivan Mukti. Indeed, so many of them. And Bhagavan continues.
Ashwatha sarva vrikshanam
Ashwatha sarva vrikshanam
devarshinam cha naradaha
devarshinam cha naradaha
gandharvanam chitrarataha
gandharvanam chitrarataha
siddhanam kapilo munihi
siddhanam kapilo munihi
Ashwatha sarva vrikshanam devarshinam cha naradaha gandharvanam chitrarataha siddhanam kapilo munihi.
Ashwatha sarva vrikshanam. Among all the trees, I am Ashwatha. Ashwatha sarva vrikshanam. Ashwatha sarva vrikshanam. Among all trees, I am Ashwatha. Ashwatha is people. The Ficus religiosa, or sacred fig, or the people tree. It is also called the Bodhi tree. It is also called Arasamaram in Tamil, or some South Indian languages. I think Malayalam also, possibly Arasamaram. Both in terms of its magnitude, its span, and in terms of its lifespan. It lives for centuries. Hence, this tree is all-pervading and immortal. It's considered that way. It lives for hundreds of years. By the way, the tree does not provide anything useful for material life of people. No fruit or no berries. Okay. Maybe once in a while you can take shelter of the shade. That's about it. Other than that, there's nothing material. That, any desire can be fulfilled from it. Nowadays, we are all gorging on mangoes. You will not get anything like that from Ashwatha, from the people tree. And that is why it is also regarded sacred. Because it doesn't fulfill material desires. Devarshinam cha Narada. Narada, among the rishis, I am Narada. The spiritually enlightened are called rishis. And Narada is a Deva Rishi. He is a rishi of the heavens. He is also known as the Triloka Sanchari, one who goes about everywhere spreading the word of Narayana. Narayana, Narayana, wherever he goes, to all Triloka. He is among the greatest of devotees also. And he is also the guru of great devotees like Prahlad, Dhruva, and all of them, their guru. Contact with Narada is said to be equal to contact with God himself. And then Bhagavan says, Gandharvanam Chitraratha. Among the Gandharvas, I am Chitraratha. Gandharvas are celestial singers or bards, or they are also physicians, by the way. They are supposed to be excellent singers and also excellent physicians. They are invoked to safeguard that intoxicating Somarasa. Somarasa we saw earlier, that is used in some yagas, and it is intoxicating. To guard that, they are invoked, the Gandharvas. They are also given to excessive lust, and hence they are invoked during wedlock. That wedlock should be happy. Gamblers seek out the Gandharvas. Okay, see what Bhagavan is doing here. He is saying, I am there, I am everywhere. All elements in the planet, nothing is to be condemned. So there is this beautiful story about how, Arjuna beat Chitraratha in a contest. Chitraratha was having a bath in the river along with his consort. And Arjuna happened to pass by and he saw them. And Chitraratha was extremely angry. Got into a battle. Long battle, end of it was Arjuna beat him in the battle. And then Gandharva became a follower and actually regaled the Pandavas with numerous anecdotes, a lot of anecdotes, because he has experience of all these good things, quote unquote, in life. So regaled them with a lot of anecdotes. Siddhanam Kapilo Munihi, and Bhagavan immediately comes to the Siddhas after the Gandharvas. Among the accomplished, I am sage Kapila. Siddha means accomplished. The Siddhas are from birth. Siddha, from birth you have. That is why it's a Siddha. And what is it that the Siddhas have? Number one, dharma, righteousness. Jnana, knowledge. Vairagya, dispassion. Aishwarya, lordship. And a Muni is a sage who is constantly engaged in japa, japa yagya. Kapila Muni is endowed with all of these virtues. Dharma, Jnana, Vairagya, Aishwarya, Japa, all of that. Kapila Muni is also the author of the Samkhya system of philosophy. And Bhagavan continues.
Uchai Shravasma Ashwana
Uchai Shravasam Ashvanam
Viddhi Mamamritodbhavam
Viddhi Mamamritodbhavam
Airavatam Gajendranam
Airavatam Gajendranam
Naranam Chanaradipam
Naranam Chanaradipam
Uchai Shravasma Ashwana Viddhi Mamamritodbhavam Airavatam Gajendranam Naranam Chanaradipam.
Uchai Shravasham Ashvanam. So, Viddhi, Bhagavan says, Viddhi Mam, know me. Know me as what? Know me as Ashvanam, among all the horses, as Uchai Shravas. Uchai Shravas is the Lord Indra's horse. And Uchai Shravas is born out of Amrita. Amritodbhavam. Born out of Amrita. We'll come to an interesting story again. And Gajendranam, that is among all the lordly elephants, Airavatam, Indra's elephant. Cha, and Naranam, Naradipam. Among all the humans, I am the monarch. Know me, O Arjuna, as Uchai Shravas among all the horses, which is born out of Amrita. Among all the lordly elephants, they are Airavatam, and among humans as the monarch. The best of horses, the best of elephants, and the best of humans. Traditionally, across cultures, you will see, across cultures, when you go into various old mythological stories, the best of horses, the best of elephants, the best of humans. They are indeed manifestations of the divine glory of Bhagavan. There's the story from the Puranas about the churning of the Milky Ocean by the gods and the Asuras, both of them, the demons and the gods. And the purpose of churning of the Milky Ocean is to get nectar, the Amrita, the ambrosia. And that story is very famous. I think there is no time, but maybe I'll still see a little later. During the churning, many wondrous things came out as prasada. Not only the Amrit came out in the end, a lot of other things came out as prasada in the middle, and they were distributed to deserving deities. Uchai Shravas is the winged horse that had ears that are standing sharp and tall. Like in dogs, if you see the German Shepherd, beautiful ears that stand tall and sharp. So Uchai Shravas, the horse, typically the ears will flap, will be down. Uchai Shravas standing, winged horse with those ears. Airavatam, Airavata, the pure white elephant, stately elephant. It had 5 faces and 10 tusks. And both of these were presented to Lord Indra, the king of gods. And then Bhagavan continues.
Ayudhanamaham vajram
Ayudhanamaham vajram
Venunamasmi kamadukha
Venunamasmi kamaduk.
प्रजनश्चास्मि कन्दर्पः
प्रजनश्चास्मि कन्दर्पः
सर्पाणामस्मि वासुकिः
सर्पाणामस्मि वासुकिः
आयुधानामहं वज्रं धेनूनामस्मि कामधुक् प्रजनश्चास्मि कन्दर्पः सर्पाणामस्मि वासुकिः
Ayudhanam aham vajram. Among the weapons, I am Indra's thunderbolt. Vajram is Indra's thunderbolt. See, the discus, what's it called? The discus? Chakram. It is personal weapon of Sriman Narayana, of Vishnu.
Sudarshana Chakra.
The Sudarshana Chakram. That's what I was thinking of, right? That's the personal weapon. Does Bhagavan says Ayudhanam aham chakram or Sudarshana Chakram? He says Ayudhanam aham vajra. Because of a significance. There was this Asura, Vrithasura. He destroyed all of heavens and he created havoc. Took away all the waters in the heavens. I mean, water, life-giving, right? Everywhere. Took away all the waters in the heavens. He was literally invincible because he had this boon which said that any existing weapon cannot destroy. So a new weapon had to be manufactured, had to be created, had to be conceived, created, manufactured. A new, brand new weapon. So all the gods get into a conference and it was finally decided on what kind of weapon, with help of Bhagavan Vishnu, Shiva, Brahma, everybody. It was decided what kind of weapon. And the material that was to be used for this weapon was the backbone of a Muni, of a sage, of a Rishi. And a Muni who is known for austerity, for purity, for perfection. And not only that, who is known to voluntarily live for the cause of universal welfare. And it was decided that sage Dadichi was the one who fulfilled all these conditions. And when Indra went and asked sage Dadichi, we need your backbone, he immediately agreed. And he sat in Samadhi and said, I will leave the body and you take my backbone. Immediately gave up his life for the purpose of conquest of evil. That is how rulers are meant to be, by the way, even in those days. But this is a soldier, sage Dadichi. So this aspect of a true soldier giving life for the politicians so that they can rule is not new. Dadichi gave his life for Indra. Even today it happens, right? Dhenu Nam Asmi Kamaduk. Among the cows, I am Kamaduk. Kamaduk is also known as Kamadenu, the milch cow of desire, the Kamaduk. That is also one of the prasada of the churning of the Milky Ocean. Is also Kamaduk, the cow of plenty. This cow has the power to supply anything. So the story goes that once, and sage Vashishta had this cow. This cow belonged to sage Vashishta. It was in his ashram. The story goes that King Vishwamitra, before Vishwamitra became a rishi, he was a king. And King Vishwamitra, with all his army after some conquest, happened to pass through Vashishta's ashram and everybody was resting. And nobody, Vishwamitra never expected, a poor sage living in an ashram in the forest to provide for him. But lo and behold, the entire army was fed, taken care of. Everything was supplied, refreshed, fed, and rejuvenated. So Vishwamitra was like, how could Vashishta Guru, how did you do this? And Vashishta said, I have Kamadukka and she gives everything. Vishwamitra immediately, the ego, the king, right? He said, I am the king. I should own this. What is it of use to you sitting in this ashram? If I have it, I'll be able to run the kingdom well. Vashishta said, no, the Kamadukku belongs here and she does not go anywhere from here. Vishwamitra tried to forcibly take away Kamadukka. And what did Kamadenu do? Kamadenu can supply anything. She started supplying all kinds of weapons and armory and the army itself to Vashishta. And this army pulverized Vishwamitra's army. And Vishwamitra had to forcibly concede to sage Vashishta that you are more supreme than me, O sage. And this is the reason why Vishwamitra then later on pursued the path of, he also became a rishi of meditation. And this Kamadukhu is chosen by Bhagavan. Prajanash Chasmi Kandarpaha. I am the Kandarpa of progenitors. Kandarpa is Cupid, the personification of the progenitive instinct. See, progeny is possible only because of this quote-unquote sexual urge among beings. The Indian concept of Cupid or god of love is very beautiful. A naughty, mischievous, young, little pleasing boy, lively boy with a smile for an arrow, also has an arrow, and smiling bow and flower-tipped arrows. It is not condemned as base. It is actually revered as divine in origin. Sarpanam asmi Vasukihi. Among the serpents, I am Vasuki. Vasuki is the serpent that is described in mythology as adorning Lord Shiva's finger, his neck as an ornament, adornment of Lord Shiva. But then Vasuki volunteered to be the rope for this churning of that Milky Ocean story. I think there is no time, but since we have given 2-3 examples of the prasadas of the Milky Ocean, I think it's worth telling that story. It's a beautiful story. So, Milky Ocean means Shira Sagara. Shira Milky Sagara, Milky Ocean. So the Devatas were losing war after war, battle after battle with the Asuras. And they didn't know what to do. They were at a loss in terms of what to do. So they prayed, and Vishnu suggested to them that they churn the Milky Ocean to get Amrit out of it. And it's not possible for you only to churn yourself. So all of you together, your Asuras, Devas, all of you together have to churn. On one side, the Asuras, on one side, the Devas. And Vasuki volunteered to be the rope to be used in this process. And there is this mountain which is part of Mount Meru, which was used as the base around which Vasuki would be tied and churned. Mandara, Mount Mandara. And on one side Devas, on one side Asuras. Now, obviously, the deal was that we will churn and we will get Amrit. But both wanted it. Outside they are saying that we will share it. But inside Asuras want the Amrit, Devas want the Amrit. Nobody wants to share with each other. And when Vasuki, Indra knew that when Vasuki is being used, the venom is going to come out. If the venom comes out and we are facing the serpent, then the venom will come on us. So ideally, the head of the snake should be with the Asuras. But Indra applied reverse psychology. He said, we will take the head and you take the tail. He did that. But the Asura said the tail, the rear portion of any being is not clean and not pure. You take it and we'll take the head. Indra said, gladly said, okay, fine. He conceded. He wanted the tail anyway. So the story goes that, during the churning also, a lot of Asuras had to take the venom. And even then the venom was so much more that then Lord Shiva had to come and swallow the poison. And that is why he is known as Nilakantha. His neck is blue, Shiva's neck, in this process of Vasuki spilling out all the venom. And remember, the venom should not fall into the Milky Ocean, because if it does, then the Amrita will also get poisoned. You can't have the Amrita getting poisoned. So somebody has to protect that. So Lord Shiva came and protected that. And finally, among all these, we saw so many things came out: the horse, the elephant, the cow, so many other things. It's also known that Mahalakshmi came from there and Bhagwan married her. And Vasuki helped this process. So Vasuki, from adorning the finger of Lord Shiva to being this mighty rope to churn the Milky Ocean, from the minutest at once to the mega, to the greatest. Bhagavan says, among all the serpents, I am Vasuki. While a serpent or a sarpa is a single-hooded, Nagas are multi-hooded. We will see that in the next verse. Bhagavan talks about it. This churning of this milky ocean for nectar is also symbolic of the life that we all lead. This eternal process of the good people and the bad people, both of them jointly churning this ocean of samsara, this ocean of life, seeking what? Seeking the nectar of happiness, seeking that nectar in terms of prosperity, in terms of knowledge, in terms of devotion. Through all of this, that nectar of happiness. So let us endeavor to be on the side where we can recognize and realize the various vibhuti of Bhagavan. Thank you very much. Hari Om. We'll continue in the next satsang. So thank you. Hari Om. It's
We have time to repeat or should we close?
I think today let's avoid. Let's go directly to
Om Asato Ma Satgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritamgamaya Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnam Dachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Shri Guru Namaha Hari Om.
Hari Om. Thank you. Any thoughts, comments, questions?
There is one Puranic encyclopedia where we can know about all these rishis, Bhrigu, Kapila, Sugar, Brihaspati, Uchchaisravas and all. Puranic
Encyclopedia. Very nice. You heard her, no? Thank you. What was the condition that Diti broke? Actually, I don't know, or let me put it this way. I did a little bit research. There are 2-3 places it keeps talking about different conditions, but most of the places doesn't mention any condition that she broke. Yeah, in the Puranas. I didn't, but there are some texts which talk about conditions that she broke. I didn't, because it was differing in some of them that I saw. So I said, why it's not relevant anymore. He broke a condition, that's enough. These vibhuti aspects are quite interesting and very beautiful and very logical also. You know, it's true that when we appreciate, any small element of beauty, of divinity, of niceness, of anything, let's take one person. We start appreciating 2-3 things about that person. After some time, we'll appreciate all the aspects of that person. So, yeah, so Bhagavan also uses that same logic. He identifies or highlights the elements that immediately strike, and then through that you start learning to see him as part of his vibhutis. And as you keep doing that, you start seeing divinity in everything. It's a beautiful concept. And I linked it this way, typically, yes, that's love, right? When two people are in love, it starts by appreciating one element of that other person, one aspect of that other person, one nature of that other person. And as it keeps multiplying, suddenly the two of them are deeply in love. If nothing else, then let's meet next Saturday. So I'll see you all from Bangalore next Saturday. Thank you. Hari Om.